Welcome to the Dandi Day Collaborative Partner Happy Hour. So happy that you are all here today. And yeah, the Collaborative Partner Network is here to support one another as we target brands and are all helping brands. So I think if we're all working together, we're able to accelerate their businesses, their work, and our work together. So sustainability is a huge aspect of what we do. It is really the only thing that we do, talk about sustainability education, and the diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big part of that. And it's something that we don't always talk about or even really know how to talk about and engage with. And so our partner, our DEI partner is GoCulture. So Dr. Justin Velten and Wade, I don't know your last name. So they're going to be sharing today about their solution, and hopefully you'll also share with your brands and your customers. Okay, so and Angela's just hopping on. So okay, Justin, the floor is all yours.
That's great. Haley and Sarah, thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of the call today and just share a piece of what we're doing specifically in the DEI space. Wade has asked to not have to say anything, so he's like, so we're gonna keep Wade kind of hidden behind the curtain, like whatever you have behind the curtain, Haley. We're gonna keep Wade hidden, but yeah, I always come on these calls, and it always strikes me of what I do is I feel so, not in a bad way, but I feel like, man, I'm really smart. I'm out of my place. So like all these people who mix chemicals and create things and then do financial things, and I'm thinking, man, these people so the only two classes I ever really struggled with in college were chemistry and accounting. So it always puts me in my place of when I'm on these calls. So I appreciate the humility that is brought for me. So I am Justin, and Wade Riggenstein, our president and CEO of GoCulture, is on the call as well. And what we do is primarily in what you would know kind of as a common phrase or acronym, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. However, what we do is really camp in this inclusion, equity, primarily inclusivity space. And so I'm just going to walk us through briefly some of the things that we're doing. Can we see this okay, Sarah? Are we all good?
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things, so GoCulture goes back a number of years, actually a 20-year research initiative. I was a university professor for 14 years. My background, research, and doctorate is in intercultural communication. So how we engage with individuals from different locations, different cultural backgrounds, those types of things. How do we do it and do it well? And so I was fortunate to be able to do that in higher ed and teach those things for a number of years, and also tie into a research initiative that was taking place out of a school in Texas that touched over 40 different countries. That took 20 years to get to the point we're at. And so we were able to develop some really cool, some things we're going to cover today, really high impact kind of talent development around inclusivity, some measurement tool around that. And then, so I was fortunate to be a part of that for about 15 years. And then we launched what we have here a couple of years ago as something that we could actually go into organizations, provide an outlet for training the workforce and then measuring the workforce. But again, it's a bit different than what we typically think of DEI. So let's look at this. So typically when we think of kind of DEI, there's a lot around this topic, right? We see a lot right now. We hear it all the time, but primarily there's a lot of confusion, kind of a lot of noise around this space, and kind of everybody's become an expert all of a sudden. And so organizations and even folks who work in this space are still kind of left, they're lost typically on, okay, what do I actually do in this? What does it mean? What do I do in this space? Do I just hire more individuals who look different from our typical talent base, or is that enough? And how these hiring quotas, or is there more to it than that? Do I just hire a consultant to come in, and do I just train kind of an executive group, a board group? Do I, hope that then trickles down to everybody else in our workplace, and we have just this warm, fuzzy kind of sense in the workplace? How do I know that if I invest dollars in that it's even working? So all this kind of model that's been taking place for years has led to not really a measurable solution that has allowed us to know, okay, what is this topic about? How do I influence my workforce? How do I create a better workplace beyond kind of these typical diversity specific elements we talked about earlier? So we started doing some research on this. As I mentioned earlier, spent 20 years in over 40 different countries looking at, okay, how can we actually make an impact here? And then once we make that, how can we measure that we're making an impact on the individual? So what we did is we noticed that, and you all have seen this, over the last 4 or 5 decades, the topic of diversity, equity, inclusion has become much more loud, which is good, much more on the forefront, because 30 years ago, it's just kind of, you don't talk about it. We don't talk about these things in the workplace. In the 90s, we saw more of a kind of a focus on talent acquisition. We mentioned earlier, making sure we're hiring a certain quota of people in a quarter, and we're measuring that. And we feel good about that. In the 2000s, we saw kind of the rise of this buzz phrases around corporate culture. A lot of people got into that kind of consulting work and things is important. And then the last decade, we saw this became a lot more evident of an area where organizations felt like they needed to focus. Maybe through social media, there was more push toward those things, but there was more focus on putting policies in place. And these things called the employee resource groups. A lot of your organizations may have these called ERGs. And then over the last couple of years, especially over the last year, we've seen a big push toward individuals wanting to work at a place that actually sees this as a priority, diversity, equity, inclusion as a priority, not just something that's maybe in the manual somewhere, but it's a priority in the talent development process. So much so that you see 78% of individuals in the workforce are going to choose or have chosen their place of employment based on that organization's stance on diversity, equity, inclusion. So do you have a strong policy? Do you care about these things? But I want you to notice that's a big number, 78%, but that was in 2018. That was before what we've seen over the last year or two, where this has moved from important to actually top of mind. So if you talk to board members, to CEOs, to whoever, they will tell you that every single meeting I go to, we talk about this topic. There are not many topics that you can find where it is brought up every single board meeting, unless it's profit, loss, those types of things. Right now, other than diversity, equity, inclusion. It's a hugely popular topic, but again, there's still a lot of confusion around this. So what we did is we took the 20 years of research we had done in over 40 different countries, and we said, well, we actually need to put together a scalable model where we can actually go into an organization, and no matter what their makeup may look like, we need to be able to equip that workforce to be more inclusive, to engage with diversity more proficiently, all these different aptitudes. And we found that there were about 15 different key competencies that really inform our own individual aptitudes around diversity, equity, inclusion, or our ability to engage with diverse others. And so what we were able to bring them was this more kind of legitimate approach that's driven around results. There's accountability, there's talent development, all these things into a simple software program that organizations can develop or implement for the entire workforce. So the factors that we look at, and over the 20 years that we saw continually resurfacing, for lack of better words. We have those listed here, and as we move through this, Sarah graciously told me earlier, that you all may want to ask questions, and that's perfect. So feel free to either stop me or make a note you can ask me later. But these are the factors that we're looking at. If you look at these, you may think, well, what are some of those? Or how does that relevant? Like, where's this? It's missing. Or why is that in there? What's interesting is, again, we're not so much looking at only what is your perception of how your organization is handling this topic, kind of we think of as a culture survey. We consider that as one of the 15 indicators, but that's not all. We also consider factors that are well beyond how many people in this category. What's our talent acquisition demographic spread this quarter? Have we done a good job at that? Pat ourselves in the back, move on. Now we want to know if you're going to develop greater diversity within your organization, is that current talent pool equipped to do a great job with that diversity? Or if there is no diversity within your talent pool, how can we improve the workplace by how we engage? I mean, there's always going to be diversity, right? Some of it's visible, some of it's invisible. So how are we going to educate, develop our talent pool so that they engage better across those differences? So what we do is we are able to offer organizations this ability to measure their entire workforce, their aptitudes, at an incredibly accurate level of across 15 indicators of, okay, these are my strengths, and these are areas where I could use some growth or improvement. A lot of organizations right now are really pushing out resources to do something about this topic, but they don't know what, they don't know if it's making an impact, they don't really know where they could use the learning, but they're just maybe spending money on topics like unconscious bias, very popular training topic, right? We see a lot of people doing that. That's great, it's important. But I mean, it could be that your organization has 10,000 employees and about 9,000 of those employees could really use some training in a certain other area as well. But how do you know that unless we measure? So we measure, and we're doing training in 15 different factors, and then re-measuring over time to be able to show a data trend within your organization, which is important for both public and private organizations. Of course, again, we do this all through our mobile app that is accessible to all the employees. And then we provide the organization, maybe it's HR, maybe it's a DEI director, a lot of data, a lot of content on, okay, here's how your organization breaks down on their actual aptitudes. You have 10,000 employees. These are how many employees are engaging. This is where they are. These are their maybe 3 strongest areas of the 15, 3 lowest areas. Here's how much time they're spending in this. So if you want to be able to quantify it to shareholders, this is how much time our organization has spent on DEI development. You have that as well. Able to show you, which regions, which departments are strong and different things like that, or improving the best. We also give you kind of a next step. Here's what we recommend you do next as an organization. And then what we've found is that organizations often want help in this space. They're not sure where to get that help. So if we're pointing them in the right direction, we are not alone a consulting firm by any means. We partner with consulting firms, and if they want that, we can either give them a clear path that they can do in-house on how to address these issues, or we can say, well, we recommend a consulting group over here. That some of us know them by name, and some are more smaller consulting firms to come in and help guide through that path. So a couple of things here. Lastly, again, this is one of the reasons I think that we work so well with Sarah and Haley, and are glad to be part of this group, is that, again, there's a lot of noise around this space right now. A lot of people jumping up saying, hey, I'm an expert. I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert, that I know everything. We just spent the last 20 years doing research around this topic, and I've been able to develop an incredibly accurate measurement tool around human behavior and aptitudes around inclusivity and how we engage with diversity in the workplace. It's a patent pending process. We're able to measure that improvement over time. And so I think that, again, I'm not someone to say, hey, look, I'm the guy who never introduces myself as Dr. Velten. 99% of the time I totally forget about the whole doctor thing. And so I'm not one to say, hey, look at us. But it's concerning to see people jumping up saying, I have a solution. when there's absolutely no background in this area. So it's great to be able to partner with Sarah and Haley and say, well, we actually have an approach that has been proven over 20 years to give great data and to have great output for the organization. And so I'm gonna stop or pause here. We can go back and look at anything. We can talk. I can actually send this out. You share this with Sarah, and she can share it with you all. But I want to invite questions, or just turn back to Sarah, and if you want to coordinate or facilitate any kind of questions.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Justin. Do you want to maybe just stop sharing your screen right now, and then if we need to pop back in there, we can, for sure. And I'm excited. So for the Dandi Day team, we're actually starting to take everyone through this whole process. And so we're going to have a conversation on Monday just with our team and Justin, and we're going to record it, talking about the like before of this process of, you know, what do we expect? What is this going to be like? Are we nervous? Like, you know, whatever comes up for our internal team, and then share along the process of what that looks like. Because I've never been through any sort of training like this before. And I'm excited about it, and for the team, and then to be able to share outward to everyone. But yeah, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we wanted to do this as well, we really believe in the program, just without actually doing it. But I think once we do it, then that gives, you know, me as a founder and someone who's casting the vision for the company to see, like, oh, are we really equipped to do the things that we want to do? Is my team, or where are some areas that, oh, we could use some work here in developing this? And if we're dealing with that, you know, I wonder what other companies might be dealing with that, and how can we engage in better conversations, and be transparent about what our journey is as a company, as we are kind of fumbling through the DEI conversation, and what it means to us. So so we're really excited about it. And I call Justin Dr. Velten because it makes me look smarter. You know how it's like, if you want to surround yourself with smart people. I just have a bachelor's degree, so like the more doctors I have around me, maybe it makes you look a little smarter.
That's funny. That's funny.
You look very smart, Haley. Well, and what I love about it too is, you know, as we look at Dandi Day and what we're working to create from that overarching umbrella of the UN SDGs, it's like taking sustainability far beyond just the products, just the packaging. It's like really looking at what this looks like within our community and beyond. So I think that's also an important piece for us.
Sorry, one more thing in the scientific approach too. Sorry, because my background is in chemistry, selling chemicals, formulations. A scientific approach is very important and very fitting for where we are in this space. And it's also extremely meaningful, as Justin said, looking at with whether you're a public or a private company and accounting for where your dollars are going, you need measurements to know that it's working. And so that's another thing that I just really love about the program.